Welcome to the Let's Keep It Light podcast, and thanks for listening. In this episode, Ginger and Marcie discuss how light therapy can benefit sleep and relaxation.
Marcie Denton, let's talk about the use of photobiomodulation, red light, infrared, blue light therapy, so light therapy, for sleep and relaxation, and so for the reduction of stress.
Stress kills. Let me say that again. Stress kills. It is the one thing about our lifestyle that we can eventually change, but it's extremely difficult because stress is everywhere. It's in the way that we are in relationship at work, at play, with our children, with our relationship with parents. It is one of the key factors in heart attacks, in other just systemic illness. And we really don't address it much. We know we need to not be so stressed. But what do? Oh, relax. Well, I have a story about relaxation. A friend of mine became a therapist, and in order to support his graduation, we were going to go to his graduation, but we couldn't make it. He said, "No problem, I'll send you a tape of it." So he sent us a tape. And he said we had to listen to it with friends, so we did. And it was nothing more than 30 minutes of relax. I said, relax. Now it's time for you to relax. And we laughed for the whole 30 minutes because the reality is you can't make relax happen. So what can we do? We have the perfect technology. We have photobiomodulation. When we place it on the area of the body that is the relaxation center, the vagus nerve, we can't help it. We become relaxed. Now, that is not a joke. It's really serious. And I've been doing this work, light therapy practitioner, for 15 years. I have never seen anyone begin a therapy session that doesn't melt into relaxation almost immediately.
And for me, it doesn't even have to be that we put the light, at the jaw and covering the vagus nerve. I mean, I think that's very, very helpful. And you've taught us that, and it's a great point. And so now we do it almost always. But even when, back in the old days of 12, 15 years ago, or however many years we've been using, for me, the pad-based system of light therapy, even when we were just putting the face mask or the eye mask, over the eyes, which covers the eyes and the sinus points and the frontal lobe of the brain, and then a pad on the belly and a pad mid-back. Even with that, everybody falls asleep. Almost everybody. I've been in the middle of trade shows, no kidding. I remember one that there was something like 10,000 people there. And our booth was slamming with light therapy. And, this one particular person, but this happened repeatedly at trade shows. This one big guy came up and he was going to do a 20-minute demo. We were going to do a demo for him. So we had zero gravity chairs. We had like 5 systems set up. And we said to him, as we do everybody, you may fall asleep. And if you fall asleep, even though all this crazy noise is going on in the background with thousands of people around, you may fall asleep. And so if you do, because we have a line of people, we're just going to tap you on the foot to wake you up. And, he laughed at us. This has happened many times where and he said, "Ma'am, I don't sleep more than an hour or 2 at a time. So there is no way I am falling asleep in the middle of all this noise that's going on in the middle of the daytime. So we said, okay, just so you know, if you do, we're just going to tap you on the foot. Of course, he fell asleep. And so not only he, but many others did that happen to in the middle of a trade show, in the middle of a seminar, that people who can't sleep fall asleep. Why does that happen, Marcie?
Because we have two very important systems. We have the parasympathetic and we have the sympathetic. And the parasympathetic system is the relaxation system. And the sympathetic is the stress, is the fight and flight. It's very important to have a balance of these systems so that, again, we can overstimulate the sympathetic by just living in today's time, by just having a job, by having to fix breakfast for the family, for making sure that the car has gasoline in it. It's amazing what we can do, and it's causing stress. Stress, again, as I said, kills.
Well, there's even good stress. You know, people can say, well, geez, I am just thrilled, working. I love my job. This is amazing. I'm doing exactly what I want. That doesn't mean that their body's not in stress.
And therefore, the body has a chance to break down, to become somewhat dysfunctional in some areas. That's one of the key pieces to chronic stress, is that it shows up as sometimes discomfort, sometimes as an injury. It's amazing how stress shows up in our lives that we don't make the connection for. But once we start relaxing and taking in that parasympathetic state, those things sort of dissolve out.
So we heal when we're in our parasympathetic nervous system, in that state when we're sleeping, relaxing, meditating.
That's exactly right.
The NIH, National Institute of Health, has said something like 93% of all illnesses are directly associated to stress.
And what we have is photobiomodulation that takes care of helping that resolution. It's amazing that we can, with technology, really and truly support our health and our wellness. It's one of those things that we take for granted, those of us who have light therapy in our space all the time. But it is definitely very, very important to stress this as we discuss the benefits of photobiomodulation.
All right. So for people who may have not listened to some of our other episodes and not heard the mechanism of action of what's actually occurring in the body when we're doing light therapy, and why would this be a stress reduction? Why would this support relaxation? Will you just recap that? So what's happening in physiologically that would put us into the relaxed state and help us to de-stress?
So if we go back to the term sympathetic, and I call that the stress state, it's the fight or flight state. That's when we're alert for our safety. That's when we're alert for messaging coming in that is not happy. It's a challenge to us, and we have a choice. Sometimes we know what that choice is, but the body knows, I have to get away from this. I've got to run. That's flight. But the fear that is generated by that encounter of something that is not comfortable for us is what we're talking about. It's subtle sometimes. It's not like dramatic, but if it's consistent, then we have an issue. How many times do we say, or we hear, or we're told, take time in the morning to be still. Take time at night to reflect. Take time to even just be alone with your day and do the things that are calming for you. And you maybe know people who try it, and all they can think about is who insulted them. All they can think about is that car accident in front of them. So again, we can't always make it happen that we can de-stress. We know there are ways of doing it, but we can add photobiomodulation and it does it for us.
Right. So, yeah, I think about, the parents who are, I got to get the kids fed, and I've got to get the clothes washed, and I have to go to work, and I have to drive the kids around, etc. And we're telling them, oh, you should be relaxed. Okay. You should meditate. Well, I know there's a lot of us, just as you're saying, and I see this a lot in our clinic. People come in, they want to relax. They absolutely want to or whatever, but they're so in the sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze. Some of it is just freeze when we're in that system. That's that accelerator on pedal is pressed in life because our world is so fast paced. Things are going so fast that there's not been a whole lot of time for self-care. However, I would say after the pandemic, we saw the big influx, and I went through this in my own life, of us as a society becoming much more aware that we need self-care. And so one of the easy things for self-care would be to get red light therapy, red infrared, blue light therapy, green light therapy. There's most commonly red and infrared, whether it's going to see your practitioner who does this or getting, a system for yourself. It's just a really easy way. But having said that, Marcie, I want to say that in our clinic, since a lot of what we're dealing with is body contouring and weight loss using a specific type of red and infrared light therapy and some other things, that it's been so fascinating, working on thousands of people or doing thousands of sessions, I should say, that, some people will start to drop weight and drop inches right away. And other people, we might be 6 sessions into that before they can get into a relaxed enough state. Now, they look relaxed because they're on the table, okay? But their mind hasn't shut off, even by their own admission. So when we're in that stressed state, even though we've got the pretty music going, the lights are dim, the ambiance is nice, their body's being flooded with nitric oxide, so the endorphins are flowing. So it's much easier for them to be getting into the relaxed state. But sometimes by their own admission, we'll be sessions down the road before they're really falling asleep within the first couple of minutes. And when we're in that stress state, the body's producing cortisol, which is encouraging the body to store fat. So that's why, as a practitioner, helping people with with weight loss and body contouring and general wellness and pain, we really got to get them into the relaxed state. We've got to switch them to the parasympathetic nervous system so the body stops that endless cycle.
And what you mentioned is exactly what I was thinking, that we have to say very clearly that for all of this stress time during the 24-hour period, we've produced hormones. And those hormones they stick with us. So no matter, again, how much we want to relax, and no matter if we're using photobiomodulation, we have to clear some of those, we call them toxins sometimes. So we build up a system of chemistry that is stress-based, that takes time, takes nutrition, takes self-care. Photobiomodulation is a part of the self-care, but it's not the end. It's not the beginning. It's just a piece of it. So it is a wholeness process that we hope that it encourages people to participate in.
Well, having said that, I will say that it has been my personal experience that when we are flooding the system with that much light, when a person comes in, they may be exhausted, dragging into the office, depressed, and you put the bars of lights and the pads of light all over their body, and we're lighting them up like a Christmas tree. And so we're infusing, every cell of the body is just being infused with light, and their energy fields being cleared. It is my experience, well, then we're literally raising the frequency, raising the vibrational frequency of the body, that this is what is impacting the person more than anything. And they then they feel so good that they can then be, compliant and follow through. And then they want to do, and they have the energy to do more things that are beneficial for them. So, for themselves. And so it becomes easier to be compliant and do self-care when you feel better and you have more energy.
So we place photobiomodulation as a health and wellness technology for all the reasons that we've talked about. But the emotional piece to this is huge. The physical piece, of course, is huge. But I think that I would be part of a conversation with someone and they would say, well, what is photobiomodulation? I say it's a health and wellness technology that makes us really capable of facing what we have to face and living a much more productive and healthy life.
It's very common when we are doing sessions, whether it's in a demo session or it is, in the clinic doing a full session for someone coming in for whatever they're coming in for light therapy, body contouring, weight loss, pain. It's very common that people will tell us that they don't sleep well, and that because I will always say, it's okay if you fall asleep. You probably are going to fall asleep. And in this case, they're on the table for 15 or 30 minutes. Invariably, I will have the clients will say, there's no way I'm going to fall asleep in the middle of the daytime, or I sleep terribly. I'm not going to fall asleep. And then they fall asleep. Just like I said with the guy with the trade show and how common that is. But one of the most fascinating things that I have seen throughout the years of using light therapy is that it seems to be when we do a session that whatever it is that person's body needs is what happens, because the body, again, just to repeat Hannah Kroger's brilliant statement about how brilliant how amazing the body is, how intelligent it is. She said, and I'll repeat it, that the human body is the most sophisticated computer that was ever designed. There will never be a computer smarter than the human body. And that with the proper information and the proper encouragement, the body heals itself. Hannah told me back 36 years ago that in the future, healing would come from color, sound, and light. And I remember way back then going, no, I don't think so. Our consciousness of the planet was, or my consciousness, I should say, was you have to swallow something to get well. Okay. And so the fact that color, sound, and light was going to be healing, it was too much of a stretch. But here we are, for my consciousness, here we are all those years later, because I think that was in 1988 that she said that, or 1989 to me. Here we are, and light therapy, we have color, sound, and light. So it seems to be that brilliant equipment, the human body, when we flood it with light, if a person needs to sleep after their session, they might go home and they might sleep for 14 hours. If the person needs more energy, in the same amount of time, they may leave and they may go reshingle their roof. It's a fascinating process for me to watch because it has happened so many times that we can only deduce that what's happening is the body's taking the information it needs, and if it needs more energy, it's having more energy. If it needs more rest, it's getting more rest. I have had many people say after a session that they were able to go home and sleep throughout the entire night for the first time in years.
Marcie Denton and Dr. Ginger Bowler are certified light therapy instructors and co-founders of the Light and Energy Training Seminar Certification Program. You can send us an email with your questions and comments to podcast@letskeepitlight.com, and be sure to visit us on Facebook and Instagram. This episode was engineered and mixed by Dr. Decibel Productions. I'm Sarah Weston. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Let's Keep It Light.